Okay. Thanks, guys, once again for joining the session. Um, First of all, I'll just discuss few things as a part of refresher from what all things we discussed in the past, few sessions. Majorly focusing on the two sessions we discussed on the arrays concept. Okay, so we have basically two types of arrays. One is your static arrays, and second is your dynamic arrays. Okay, uh, if you're practicing, it's good. Otherwise, just for a refreshing thing, in static arrays, what are the ways we can actually initialize or declare an array? There are basically two ways: either with the help of your new keyword, okay, and secondly with the help of your array literals, directly giving inside the curly braces, okay, that you can see here, just down the line. Yeah, here. Okay, so there are two ways we can actually initialize or declare our static arrays. First of all, second, how we can actually print all the arrays values on our console. There were three ways that I shared up with you. First thing is arrays.toString method, where all the arrays were getting printed on the console within the square brackets. Second thing was for loop, with the help of your iterations, keeping your incrementing a value from I0 and then working on that loop. Fine. Third thing we discuss your for each loop, and we discuss that for each loop is basically used when we have some if conditions to be there inside the for each loop, okay, to break the statement, to break the loop, and once our condition is satisfied, we are good to go. Fine. These things we discussed from my arrays concept, that is an static array. So in static arrays, there were two basic major disadvantages. For the reason we were using what, your dynamic arrays. One of the disadvantage was that we cannot actually have different type of data to be stored in a data type. Okay, so only similar sort of data can be stored in a data type, like your integer data can be stored in an int type, your character in a character type, string in a string type. Okay, but we cannot store the multiple type of data in the static arrays. The only one such exception was the object array. Fine. Because in object array, what we have seen, if I'll just come down, in the object array, we have seen that we can store the multiple data. For example, if we have an employee data in a company to be stored, then we can use an object array. But that also does not solve our purpose. Why? Because of the second disadvantage. And what was that? That we have to actually allocate the size or the memory at the initial level only to this particular array. That means that only 5 size this particular array can take. Even if I am trying to store one more value, see in this, if I'm just trying to store one more value at the fifth index, okay, it won't discourage me to do this. Okay, if I'm just saying what whatever, let it be two some string values there, it won't discourage me. No compile time error will be there, but obviously nothing will be printed on your what console. Fine. Because why? We have just given 5 size, and if we are going to trying to print all the values, then what it will be giving, guys? Hmm? Index out of bound exceptions that we have known. So all these things we know. Fine. So two disadvantage, that one is you're statically defining the memory size, and similar data type cannot be stored. So for that reason, we have used your array list concept. Fine. So this array list concept, it was getting imported from where? Java.util package, first of all. Okay. And array list is basically a collection. Okay, so further part of the collections I'll be discussing in the advanced topics of Java, like your hash map, hash set, linked hash set, all these things. But array list is a concept to avoid the disadvantages of the static arrays. Fine, that's why I discussed it initially. Okay, now array list also can be initialized and declared in two ways. I told you, first was without any generics. Okay, and second is using generics. So what was the advantage of using without any generics? Like, we can store multiple sort of data of different data types in an array list with a single variable. Fine. But this is discouraged because obviously Java says that why you are storing multiple sort of data. If you are, if you follow the coding ethics and programming part, then you should always give some generics. And these generics are what? These are the class names of all the primitive data type. And we have 8 different types of primitive data types. What? Int, short, long, byte, float, char, boolean, all these things. String is not any primitive data type. It is basically a class. String is basically a class in Java. Fine. Okay. So we have to use the generics. Fine. So these array lists actually helped us to resolve the two issues. First of all, that we can store the multiple data type. Apart from that, we need not to store any sort of hard-coded what size or a memory size. We need not to allocate initially. Fine. Array list actually grows dynamically at runtime. Whatever value you want to store, do it. Fine. It will keep on expanding at the runtime only. As I have told you, array list basically follows the index pattern. Like whatever values you will be keep on giving, it will be keep on increasing its index. Fine. And it will be working for you. Next thing, array list can be shrinked based upon whatever method you are using for removal of the particular element. Fine. Apart from that, what we discussed, that we have different types of methods in array list. One was your add method for adding an element. Then was your remove method for removing an element. Then remove all method for removing entirely everything from an array. Then we have a set method for actually replacing an element in an array list. Fine. And we discussed one more very important concept, that was your what, memory utilization, how is being done in the array list. So we have known that there is a physical capacity and the virtual capacity. By default, the virtual capacity of array list is what, 10, and physical capacity keeps on growing as soon as we keep on adding the elements to it, and virtual capacity keeps on decreasing. One more important thing was load factor. At what percentage or at what load factor my virtual capacity will increase if all my physical capacity has been completed. So it will be equal to, load factor will be equal to PC upon 2. Fine. All these things we discussed in the previous part. Fine. I hope that all makes sense and you are clear on that part. Now, what we have to discuss today, guys. So see, almost all the basic things, okay, have been completed from the Java end. Now we'll be moving on to the advanced part, and from here on we'll be now knowing what our classes actually are, okay, and how to create objects of a particular class. Because see, for all the automation framework creation, what you have to do, you have to entirely work on different classes. Fine. You have to create a class of your frameworks. Fine. You have to create the multiple objects. Okay. Okay. So for that reason, I'll just create a package for you. Okay. And the package name, let's keep what, class concepts. Okay. And I told you that it should always start with a smaller letters, the package's name. Fine. And in this package, I'll be taking a new class for you now. What is that? Let's create an employee class, and then I'll discuss what class actually is. Okay. Fine. I'll be having a main method. We can just direct pick it up from here only. Fine. Now, guys, see, we have dealt, and we know that we can actually create a class with the extension .java file. Okay, so .java is an extension, and we all know that it is being converted to source code and then binary code, that we all know from initial things. But what class actually is? This is an interview question people ask. What is a class? What is an object? Okay, so see, class is basically a blueprint. Fine. Or we can consider what, it is an template, or we can consider it is a category. Okay, so class is basically a blueprint or a template or a category. Fine. How it is a category or how it is a template, understand. See, we'll take an some real-time examples. Let us consider that we have what, a laptop categories we are having. Fine. So inside that laptop category, can you tell me how many different types of laptops we can have? Laptop is basically a one category, or we can consider it as a blueprint or a template, whatever you want, but it is a category for me. So inside this laptop category, what I can have, that laptop can be of multiple size. Okay, it can have multiple weights, multiple laptops. Obviously, it can have multiple brands. Fine. Can be having different OS inside it configured. It can have different RAM, ROM, the memory size, and what else? Color. Multiple things we can have. So all these things, guys, these things actually define your class. By default, this laptop becomes a category for you, and inside that particular class or a laptop category, I can have these many elements. These you can consider objects also. These you can consider different variables also inside the class. Okay, so for a particular class, either employee class or a laptop class, I can have hundreds of objects created with the help of these things. Means I can have hundreds of sizes, weights, brands, multiple things. Okay, this is one of the case that I understand that yes, laptop is a category and I can have multiple objects created out of it. Now, another case, can you consider humans? So human beings by default are basically a category only for me. Fine. Now, what all comes in the inside the human beings? Means human beings can be of different weight, size, color. Fine. From different countries, having different names. Fine. Obviously, they can be working in different departments. So human beings is basically a moreover a category for me. It's basically a blueprint. Fine. And that human category itself can have millions and billions of objects. How? There are millions of billions of what human beings which are very varied in from one another. Okay, so these multiple billions and millions of these things are called as an objects, we can say, or these are the properties of the human beings based on what they are divided. Fine, but humans or human being is basically a class, an entire class, an entire category for me. Okay, inside which we have multiple other what objects or the variables or the properties. Okay, fine. Else, rest what? How can we actually define a class? Hmm? Okay. Can we now consider this employee class, or we can consider that employee is also a category? Let us consider that employee is a category. Okay. And inside that employee category, we will now consider that employee is a category and what employees can have. So let us consider that employees are working in a company. Fine. Now, this employee itself is a category. It's basically a what? A sort of a class for me. How many employees or what types of employees we can have? How can we differentiate it? The employees can have a different first name, fine, can have different last name, guys. Hmm? Working in a company, they can belong from different designations, fine. Department, they can work in different departments, correct? That's what. Hmm? They can obviously have different salaries, multiple things. So these are what? These are on the basis of these properties, the employee categories being divided into multiple other, subcategories or employees. Okay. Now, next thing. So all these things which are defined, the parameters on which we can actually divide this employee category, these are known as the variables. Fine. Variables of a class. Fine. Okay. Now let us just try to what? Define these variables inside of a class. Fine. Okay. How we can define? Hmm? Let us just try to use this. See, one more thing. All the variables that we define is never defined inside my main method. Never. Why? I'll be telling you, in the second half. Everything which you define, try to define at the global level, at the class level, just after this class. Okay. Now, what we can define? What are things we have in inside an employee? Employee can have name. Obviously, the name is of which data type? It is in string. Fine. Then what? Employee can have different designations. Fine. Okay. Then what? Employee can have some IDs also. Correct. Some employee IDs, some customer IDs, whatever you can think it of. It can be there. Fine. Rest what? Hmm? Employees can belong from different department. Fine, perfect. It is also from the string type. It is from integer type. Obviously, ID is mostly towards the numeric part. Okay. Now, rest what? Can we take some other data type also? Can we take a Boolean? Yes. If that employee is basically a permanent or a non-permanent, we can take this thing on the basis of true or false. This can also be one of the property. Hmm? Okay. So one thing is this. Now we have defined all the variables. So these are the class variables. Fine. Defined at the class level, at the global level, inside the class. Okay. That means all these variables are the properties of this particular employee class. Fine. One thing. Now we can actually create an object of it. Hmm? Now, what is object now? See this. Now I told you all the variables has to be created outside the main method and at the global level. Now where we have to create the object, guys? See this now. So object has to be every time created inside the main method. Why? Because I have told you in the first session of Java also that JVM directly call this main method. This is a very, very, very important interview question. People ask that what if there is no main method in your class? Will your program run, or you'll be getting some compile time error, runtime error, or what? So you have to make sure, say that you cannot actually run your Java program or a class without any main method. Why? Because everything or execution point is this main method only. Okay. If you don't have this, see, what I'll do is for time being, I'll just try to delete this out. Control X. And I'll just try to write what? Uh, I'll just try to write an object for you, just for understanding point of view. Can you see this? It is saying cannot be resolved to a type or something like this. Why? Because you don't have any main method. Why you are writing this? Obviously, even if you write or compiler doesn't give you any error, you won't be able to run it. So for that reason, what we need, hmm, we need the main method only. Okay. Now, let's try to create an object of it, object of this class, and we will understand what is the use of the object. Okay. How to create an object? Need not to do anything. Just copy this class. This is the class name. Fine. Now, a class name should always have a variable. Fine. As I told you in guys array list concept also, once you were what? See, you have a variable for this array list. So array list was also a default class in Java. Okay. But now we are actually creating a customized class, a custom class. So it should also consist of what? Some variable name. Huh? Let us consider it have obj name. I'm just writing. It's an object name I'm writing for a class. Okay. Equal to new keyword is basically used to create an object of a class. Okay. How to create an object now? This is it. That's it. So class name, variable name is equals to new class name. That's it. That's how your object will be created. Okay. And now just understand what is the object here. Huh? Is the employee class your object, or obj name is an object, or this is an object? Hmm? This is also a second interview question. People directly ask, tell me, Ravi, what is an object here? And people usually do a mistake here. They just tell it that obj name is an object. No, this is an object reference variable. Means this is a reference variable which is referring to an object. Now then, what object is? So this entire right hand side is the what? Basically an object for you. Object is created inside the memory. I'll tell you how in a minute. Okay. So this right hand side is the object you created. Okay. So wherever you see this new keyword with a class name, this class name can be anything, correct? Obviously it can be anything. So wherever you see with this new keyword a class name is there, consider it object is created. And if you have some reference variable, that's fine. That means that reference variable is actually referencing to this particular class object. Okay. Otherwise it is not. It's very simple. So in this way, we can create hundred thousands of an object of a particular class. Fine. Now, what is the use of creating hundreds and thousands of the object, guys? Tell me. See, see one thing. First of all, I'll just open Paint for you to tell you the actual use case of creating the objects. Okay, I'll just take in this thing. And so, guys, deep down inside the memory, what happens? See. So this is an object, fine. This is a memory, okay. Internally, this is a memory. It will be created as soon as you create this particular employee or an object and run the program. So as soon as this line will be executed, this object will be created inside the memory. Okay. Memory, I'll be telling you how it is divided into heap and stack, later on half of this particular session, which is understand that a memory is created which consists of this new employee class object. Now, what this object consists of? This is also important. See, so all those properties, can you see this? All the properties, name, designation, ID, department is permanent. Everything you can see as a part of variables inside this class, okay, will be the part of this object. So what will happen, guys? Internally, a photocopy of this variables or the properties of this class will be given to the object created. Fine. So what we understood, that object will be created, fine, with the help of your new keyword, and RHS is the object creation part. So this is the new, with the help of new keyword, you create an object inside the memory. And as soon as you create an object inside the memory, all the variables, all the properties of that class will be given to you inside that object as a photocopy. Photocopy means whatever the default value of all these things are there, it will be given to this particular object as it is. So let us consider that for string name, we have a default value as null. For int ID, we have a default value as 0. And for Boolean, we have a default value as false. So everything will be given to this particular object by default as it is. Now, it depends upon this obj name, how we are actually assigning the values to these properties and how we are actually fetching it. Okay, so that is the use case of this obj name for the variable name, that this obj name is actually now referring to this entire object. Fine. So this obj name is now referring to where? to here. Okay, this is the use case. Now, I hope you understood. Hmm? So what do you think that new class is an object, new employee class is an object? This is what? It's an object reference variable. And the entire line is actually creating an what? A object for you inside the memory where all the properties, photocopies being given to that object. Now, just see this. If I want to fetch or get the values, or if I want to print, you say, Nishant, it just try to print, or how can we fetch the values from all these properties? See this. So if I'll just try to fetch the values and to make sure that what is the current value of all these name designations, ID and department thing. So what I can do, just a second, obj name dot what name. Okay. In the similar way, I can actually print all the values. Okay. Let's see this. I can print ID also. Then I can print department also. Then what I can print uh, designation also. Else everything. Yeah, I can print is permanent also. Okay. Now let's just try to see what is the values being given to me right now. Hmm? Can you see this? All the default values are being given to me. Why? First of all, I have not assigned any sort of values, or I have not hard coded at the class level. So all the properties are being given as a what photocopy to this particular object. And with the help of this object name, I am able to fetch all the properties. Fine. The default values are obviously. Okay. So this is one of the way. Now, how to actually assign, hmm, or how I can say how to define the variables. See this now. See, so first of all, you know that now the default values are what? So by default, the default values of a string is null. For integer is 0. Okay. And for Boolean, make sure it is false, not true. Now, if I am just saying that I am now giving some values to this particular employee and I am having a single employee for now in my company. Okay. Obj name dot id I am giving 101 and obj name dot belongs to which department? Belongs to engineering department. Okay. Engineering department. Rest what? Tell me. If he is permanent, yeah, we can say it is he is permanent. Rest what? Department and your designation. Okay. Let us just try to take this also. Control V is equals to he is a manager. Let us suppose this thing. Okay. So now what will happen? You have assigned some values to it. Okay. So this object has actually assigned some values to this particular all the variables. Now, if I'm just trying to print, okay, all the values again, guys, see this, what will happen now? Just a second. Just giving a star. Now see this. See, can you see this? All the values has been assigned to this particular object. Hmm? So now the object which is consisting of one of the photocopy of all the variables has got some values inside. Okay. So all the values will be assigned here. Now by default the values were 0 and null, but now we have assigned some values to it. So obviously this object will now be referring to the same values, but assigned values, the current values, which is these. Okay. This is one of the case. Now, can we create the multiple objects of a particular class, or what is the limit for creating an object of a particular class? Hmm? Is there any limit, guys? Hmm? So we can create n number of objects of this particular class. There is no limit for that. And one more important thing now, for every object creation, how can we create an object? We have created like with the help of the obj name. Now, if I just want to take it another way, I can use even. Can I use that? Obviously, reference variable name and reference object name, I have to keep it different every time. Rest, everything remains same. Now, can you tell me what will happen inside the memory with the help of this thing? Huh? So this is also going to create a what? A separate another object inside the memory with this line. With this line, a new object will be created, and same what? Now understand this thing. This is important. Same what? All the variables will be given to it also. But tell me now, what will be the values of all these things, of all these variables now? Huh? Will it be Mahesh 101 engineering, all these things? No. Why? Because I told you by default, whatever all the values are there at the class level of all these variables, it will be given as a photocopy for all the objects. Okay. So let us just try to see for from this employee also, what is the values if I'm just trying to print it with the help of this thing only. Okay. But just changing the what? Obviously the variable name, object reference name. Okay. Now we'll see what values it is getting printed, and it will make sure you E1. Okay. I'll just give again, and I'm giving some and okay. And let us just try to print the values now. Can you see this? After and what is the values? Same again, the same thing. Why? Because all the default values of all these variables which are defined at the class level are by default 0 or null. And hence I told whatever variables are there, as soon as you create one object inside a class, a photocopy of all these variables will be given to what? A particular object inside a memory. So this is an object. This is all the variables that we have. Now, obj name is not referring to this one. What is my reference object name now? It is E1. Huh? It is E1, correct? So now E1 is actually referring to this object, not the obj1. Fine. Okay. So this is how the memory is actually utilizing, or how the values are getting stored inside the memory. Okay. Now I'll just do one more thing for you to understand that if I'm just defining now, how can I make sure that I am providing some values to it? Same thing. I'll be giving some different names, and okay, but with what? I have to use the same E1 only, not the obj1. If I am giving the obj1, oh, sorry, here. If I am giving the obj1, then where will the values being changed? At the first object. Fine. So that you have to understand. Is it done? Yeah. Now I'll just take a name as Nishant. Okay. ID let us take as what, 102 engineering department. It's a permanent member, and QA SDET. Fine. Now, what if I'm just trying to print the values again, guys? Now see this. Again, if I'm just trying to print all the values, see, can you see this? It is printing now the second value from the second object. Fine. From the first object, it printed all these values, and from the second object, once I assign to it, it printing all these values. Okay. So we can actually create n number of an object, whatever we want for a particular class based upon our use case. Now, what is the use case? So obviously, we can have hundreds and thousands of an employees in a particular company. We can have obviously from the different department designations, a different age, IDs, and everything. So that is a perfect use case, that if we have to store the data, okay, for these hundreds or thousands of employees, we actually have to create the thousands objects for that class for storing all the data. Okay, we cannot just use one of the data or one of the objects for for fetching all the details of different employees. We cannot do that. Anyhow, we have to create the thousands objects, and that has to be stored inside my memory. Okay. And for every object, one reference variable will be there that will be very unique, and that reference object variable will be referring to my what? Object inside the memory. Okay. Second thing, by default, all the properties having the default values will be given to that particular object, whatever I am creating inside the memory. Okay. I hope this is clear to you now, probably, because these are the interview questions people ask usually. Now, one other way also, we can actually create an object, but that is usually not recommended. But as a part of interview question, I have to cover this. Fine. See this. Not recommended. What? I know that I have to use what? A new keyword for creating an employee class. Can you see this? If I just write this, guys, is it creating a new what object at the memory level for me? I don't have any sort of a reference variable like employee class or obj1 or obj2. I'm not having. I'm just having the right hand side. Is it going to create an object for me? Hmm? Yes, it is creating a new object inside memory, but it doesn't have any reference variable. Okay. So in the same way, a new object will be created. Okay. With what? With this one. Okay. This obviously this is the way how we can actually create a new object. Fine. Second thing, all the properties also will also be given to this particular what? Huh? All the properties has to be given whatever by default. But now tell me how to fetch all the properties, how to assign some values to it. So this is the mistake that most of the people do when they're writing the automation framework. Also, what they do, they just try to create an object of the class with the help of this thing. So guys, this is the anti-pattern technique. This is not the correct way of writing the code or a pattern. Okay. Why? Because we don't have any reference variable. If someone has to fetch the value of a name, ID, or department, how he has to do that? Hmm? How there is also a way that he can fetch the value. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. But that is the worst way. Worst way. Why? That also I'll tell you. Now we have created a object with this new employee class, but I don't have any reference variable. So obviously, no reference variable. This object is called object created with no reference check or a no reference. What? No object being referenced to. Fine. Now, how he will create or what print an ID and all these values? See, he will do this thing. People do. So obviously, this is an object for me. Fine. Now, dot ID. Hmm? Can you see suggestions are coming? Now, just see one thing now. This is going to print values also for me. Worst way. Department. Fine. Then what I have designation. Okay. Then what I have is permanent. Then what I have, I'll be just putting a name also. Okay. Chalo. Now let us just try to see if this is going to print something or not. Because obviously I don't have any reference or a object reference variable. But is this going to print something for me? Yes, it is printing all the values by default. But now tell me, and it will test your knowledge. What is the worst part of this thing? Though it is actually printing some values, but can you tell me that every line 72, 73, 75, whatever I have written, okay, every line is actually creating what? A new object inside the memory. Huh? With the help of this new keyword, you are creating an object inside the memory. Then you are actually what? Fetching the value of it the by default. So what will happen, guys? By default, multiple objects will be created, multiple objects with no reference check, no reference object being referring to, and all the properties will be assigned to here also, here also, here, everything. By default, all the properties will be assigned, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 objects will be created, for no use inside the memory. And all these objects are what? No reference object. This is the worst way. Okay. So always make sure you create an object. You should always have an object reference variable being referring to the particular object. Now I'll tell you, even though we are creating, okay, we are fetching. So what's happening here? That for ID value is getting fetched from here. Okay. Department value is getting fetched from here. Why? Because new objects are created. So obviously, every time a photocopy is given, it's not fetching the value from here. New object means new properties, and new properties means the by default it is 0. Department it is getting fetched from here, designation from here, ID from here, name from here. Worst way. Okay. Now I'll tell you, even if people are creating this, how this is getting, you know, uh, what destroyed or something like this. I'll tell you in a minute. Now, what we'll understand. Mm, 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 mm. Okay. So let us just try to have one more diagram. Okay. And then you'll understand the entire memory utilization. This is very, very important, guys. People usually ask to you that how you're actually making sure that memory is actually utilized, or do you know the memory utilization techniques, or how internally the values, the objects, the references are getting stored inside the memory? So here's the answer. See this. What I'm doing, I'm just trying to create that memory should be looking like this inside the Java. Okay. Now this is being divided into two, majorly two sections. What are these? So these are, first of all, it is an heap. Okay, you have already heard this term, known this term, but understand now. And what? Stack. Okay. So what are this stack and heap memories are, and where our objects are getting stored? Understand this also. This is very important question people ask from all the experienced people, that you have created what? You have created several objects. Okay. So first of all, I'll just make sure this is the object that I created. So what happened, guys? What all objects we are creating inside the class? Okay. These are going to be stored here. I created one this new employee class object. Okay. Then I created what? Another new employee class object. Okay. So I'm just creating multiple objects, or I'll just try to write it with the help of, okay, I won't write it this way. Okay. I've created, let's suppose, 5 objects I've created. And I'm just writing in this way only. And fine. Okay. So these are the, let's suppose these are the 5 objects created. So every time make sure and understand and remember that all the objects, wherever you create, in whichever class, all the objects are going to be part of this heap memory only. Okay. Fine. Now what is a part of stack memory? So all the references, E1, obj name, okay, E2, whatever references you are creating, it will all be the part of this thing. Okay. Obj name. Then rest what? We have E1 also. Okay. These two objects we created till now. Huh? So these two objects. Fine. Okay. Now what's happening, guys? Since obj name is being referring to what? One of the object. है ना? This is an obj name is an object class reference, and E1 is referring to what? Another object. Okay. That we know, we understand. Now what about these? Huh? That we created. Around 5 objects we created, but okay, that's fine. Let it be 3 here. Is it referring to somewhere? Huh? Is there any reference? No, no reference. So these all objects, what? These all objects will be not referred by anywhere, and it will be just roaming here and there inside an heap memory. Okay. Because obviously we have an obj name being attached to this employee. Even we have an object name which is being attached to this employee. But what about these? Huh? Obviously they'll roam here and there inside the memory only. And finally, what will happen with them? I'll tell you. Okay. So I'll tell you in a minute, but let us see if I'm just creating what? Employee class again, and E2 object I'm creating is equals to new. Now tell me, will this create another object or not? Huh? It is going to create another object, but with what reference? Now E2 is going to refer, है ना? Perfect. So I am having this. I'm just creating what? E2 is also I'm writing here, and I am saying now E2 starts pointing to what? One of the object. Okay. Fine. This is the E2 which is being referring to. Now, what if I'm just writing? So see, all these objects, these are no reference object. Okay. Now, understand. See this. If I'm saying that this E2 is, now I know that it is referring to one of the object inside the heap memory. But what if I just give null here? Huh? What does this mean? That means what? That E2 now will break the connection. See guys, E2 now will break the connection from where? It will break the connection from here, and it will start pointing to something like null. Okay. And I'll just represent it null. So it will start pointing to null. Okay. What does this mean? This is actually a null reference object. Means you have an object reference, but now you don't have an object actually. In this case, what was happening? That you were having an object, but you don't have any what? Object reference. In this case, what's happening? That you don't have any actual the object also, because your object reference is being referring to null. That means you don't have any object. So that this is called as null reference object. Fine. This is no reference object, and this is null reference object. Now, tell me what this is going to print a value. If I'm just saying same thing again, try to print some values for me. Huh? Tell me. what this is going to print for you guys. I'm just saying E2, 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 and E2. Can you tell me, is this going to print you anything like some what default values, some errors, some issues? Huh? Tell me. Just focus on the last thing, that E2, E2. Okay, that's fine. I'm just trying to print it now. Can you see this? What is printing at 81st line? What it is saying? The first line only. Hmm? See this? E2 is null. How can you actually read the values from anything? That means that this object was given some what? Some photocopy of the variables. But now your E2 is referring to something else. Means some earthing is there, some null object it is referring to. Obviously, where no properties are there. Correct? Null does not create any sort of object for you. Only these things created on object for you. That means that as soon as E2 is assigned a null to you or to this reference, we will be getting what? Huh? A null reference check, a null pointer exception that we actually get inside the Java and Selenium and all these things. So make sure null pointer. This is very, very common exception. You will be finding inside the Selenium also for the web driver, when you will be seeing the driver is now pointing to null. Driver has actually lost somewhere. And that time you will be getting what? Null pointer exception. So what different types of objects we have, guys? Now we have 4 different types of objects, or majorly 3. What are these? We have a normal object that we created with the help of your obj name. Okay, that is referring to a proper object which consists of some properties also, and you have assigned some names and IDs and you are fetching it. Okay, then what we have, a second type of object, even that was a different object with different names, different properties, and you assigned it and you are referring to this particular what? Object. Third, what you had? You had these 2 objects which were having no references. Though objects were created, though properties were there, but since if there is no one to actually refer you, how you are going to print or fetch the value, guys? Huh? This is a second category of an object. Third category is what? If you have an E2 object, oh sorry, object reference variable which is being referring to some object, but somehow you actually assigned a null to that particular object reference value, then will that object be there? No, that object will be lost, and your reference variable will be just cut down from the previous object and it will be start pointing to null. So will that null object be having any sort of properties by default? Nothing. As soon as you try to print or you try to see, you even if you try to give some values to it, it won't be actually allowing you. Why? Because obviously if your E2 is null, how you're going to assign some values to that properties also? That's important. These are very, very important things, guys. 3 things, 3 different objects. People ask with the help of image, something like this. They do ask. The interviewers ask that now tell me what should be the value of it. And people just say by default it is 0 or null. But that's not the case. Okay. So these are 2 different anti-pattern techniques people use, or these are not the good way of writing the code. These are actually the bad ways. Okay. Now you can ask me, Nishan, but what will happen to these no reference object and a null reference object? Is there any way Java is handling these things? Huh? Initially it was referring to some object and now it is referring to null. Huh? Tell me, is there any way? Hmm? So understand, guys. I'll tell you now. Understand. That's why it is always called that always have a good RAM memory size inside your computer. Huh? Because all these things, see, if you create thousands of objects, it is going to take up your heap size only. Correct? So let's suppose you have in what total size is of 16 GB. Okay, and out of 16 GB, let us consider that your only Java program is actually utilizing the 500 MB. That's it. Okay, I'm just taking for the reference. Now, inside this Java, I'm saying this heap and stack is actually taking what? Heap memory is taking around 250 MBs. Okay, and rest of what rest? Let us consider out of Java, around 50 MB is being taken by the stack. Okay, that's it. Now, what will happen, guys? If in the case, because of your object creation, thousands or millions of object creations, your heap size got completely filled up. Huh? That's an issue. That's why your application sometimes gets crashed or it becomes very, very slow because of your RAM is less, or you have created multiple things, or your multiple programs are being run. Because obviously, see, the entire 16 GB is being taken by what? All the running programs in your computer. Okay, fine. So that's why heap memory completely filled up and it can make your application slow. But that doesn't happen every time for everyone. Obviously, it's very, very, very rare case. Fine. Now, for that case, guys, there is a mechanism that comes into picture actually. And what is that mechanism? Huh? So if we have created a useless objects, a no reference object or a null reference object, what will happen to these objects creation? Hmm? Will that be getting destroyed something somehow? Yes. So there is a concept called garbage collector. Okay? Or we call it a GC. If somehow you have heard about it, because this is very, very another important interview question. People ask, what is garbage collector? Hmm? So garbage collector is basically what? It's basically a method or a mechanism in Java only. By default, what it does, it keeps on checking or keeps on having a check on this heap memory. Hmm. How? So JVM internally is actually handling this garbage collector, and it keeps on pointing or polling this heap inside that, whatever internal mechanism is there. I don't know about that thing, but it keeps on polling that heap memory or that memory size, that as soon as your program execution is completed, okay, whatever objects that you created without any without any object reference, or all the objects or all the reference variables which are actually pointing to null object, everything is going to be getting destroyed. And that's how your heap memory is again going to get some space every time you run a program or an application. There are so many ways, garbage collector actually works, but for time being, for understanding how it is working in your object creations and all these things, this is actually the way. Okay, fine. Now you understood, huh? So, so no, just a case where you have created n number of objects and all the memory of the heap is getting utilized, then there obviously there can be chance of some application slow down or some crashing of that application. So to manage that, a mechanism is there which is called a garbage collector. Okay, it works to keep a check on the heap size, fine, and it is being handled internally by the JVM, Java Virtual Machine, and Java Virtual Machine is inside what? JRE. Okay, so JVM will instruct the garbage collector to keep a check on heap memory, and before the size of its heap getting completed, GC will actually keep on destroying the no reference objects and the null reference objects, both leaving behind only the proper reference objects. And hence, what? Your obviously memory will get freed again, and you are good to go. Now, one more thing. Memory is not allocated as whatever code I am writing on that basis. No, it will be applicable only when I am actually running this program. So as soon as I am running or this program is into the running mode, at very high speed, all the objects will be created inside the heap. Okay? As soon as my program is over, all the null references and no object reference, objects will be getting destroyed from the GC with the help of a JVM. So this is actually called the delocation of the memory. Fine. Okay. Now, another important interview question. Now, interview will ask you, okay, that's fine. But is there any way that you can actually handle? And if I am saying that, Nishant, what happened if you have to actually manually delocate the memory, or you have to free up the memory size of the heap? Is there any way? Huh? You can actually tell the garbage collector to free up the space of the memory. Hmm? So yes, there is a way. What is that? What? Can you see this? As soon as I am writing G, there is a suggestion I am getting. This is GC. Huh? So this is system.gc that says system directly going to command this garbage collector. GC is a garbage collector. Can you see this? Understand? Can you learn? It means, can you just read it out? Runs the garbage collector in the Java virtual machine. Calling the GC method says that the Java virtual machine expands the efforts towards recycling unused objects in order to making the memory that currently occupied available for reuse by the JVM again. So this is the method. This is an interview question. Tell me the method, how you can actually call it manually without internally using the JVM. That is going to free up the space for you if your application is getting slow, or if you think that you have created, a more coding or more programs in your class file. This is a way actually manually you can actually use this system.gc method. It is going to free up the memory. Fine. Okay. Now tell me one important thing. Okay, that's for you. If I'm just creating another one more what an object, and that is an E3 object of this particular class again. Hmm, ठीक है? What happened? Undefine the method of this. Okay, am I creating inside this or outside this? Okay, that's fine. Probably from. Okay, I'll just I'll just use this out. Okay, I'll just try to create what. Let me see. What thing? Create. Okay, probably I'm just creating inside this. Okay, no worries. I'll just take in separate class. Just see class, and we'll take employee only, employee class. And what if I'm saying what? See this. I'm saying employee E3 is equals to new employee. Okay. And what if I'm saying a new, obviously, from all the this point, this line, seventh line, we know now that E3 is an object reference variable, which is actually reference to one of the object created inside the heap memory. Fine. Now, if I'm saying again same thing, that I have assigned a null to it. Okay. That means now what? There is no object. So this is a null object reference. Okay. Means object reference is doing referring to what? A null object. This is also I know, because this will be what? Applicable for your garbage collector. But what if I'm saying E3 is equals to what? New employee again. Now you tell me, guys, what will happen? I'm redefining this E3 to a with the help of your new employee. So what will happen inside the memory? Hmm? So see this. One object will be created because of this. We know that. Okay. Now this is a what? Null reference object. Okay. Now this is what? Reassigning a new object to the same old what? Object reference variable. So what will happen inside the memory? That it will cut down, this E3 will cut down from that null reference, and it will start pointing to my new object will be created inside the memory. Okay. So in this 3 lines of code, 2 new objects will be created, one from this line where E3 is a reference variable, object reference variable. First of all, it was referring to the first of the object. Then somehow we cut it from the first object and we make it what? Referring to a null object. Then again, we told that this E3 that start pointing to another object. Fine. So what it will do? It will cut down first of all from here. It will start referring to here. Then it will cut down from here, and then it will start referring to this new object. Okay. But the question is now, tell me, GC will come into picture here or not? And what object it will destroy, guys? Huh? Tell me. So understand from again from this part. So I've just I don't want to save it. It's fine. Yeah. So I have just a single. Fine. In this, what I'm having. Okay. This is the memory. Fine. And inside this, I am having this what? One of the object created. Okay. Fine. One of the object created here. Okay. Fine. Okay. Then null also I'm having here. I'll just write it down. Null also I'm having it here. Fine. Then one more object I'm having it here. Okay. Now the question is, so this is my heap memory. Understand, this is my heap memory, and what I'm creating, I'm just creating a stack memory also here, where I'm just saying I'm having an what? I'm just having this reference variable E3. So what is happening? First of all, this E3 was referring to this. Okay. Then what we did? We just said it, cut down from here. Okay. And start pointing to what? Start pointing to null. So E3 start pointing to null then. Then in the third line, what we said? That now E3 start pointing to some different object. And we instructed him that just cut down from here also and start pointing to where? To your second object. So that means single reference variable can be allocated, can be assigned to multiple objects also. Okay. So, but obviously it will point out to one of the object, only the current object. And what is that? It is this new object, new employee object. So first of all, it was there, cut them down. It was then to null. Then it was again back to a new object. So right now the current state of this E3 is pointing to this one, correct? Fine. So this is the point that we need to know, that we can actually assign a multiple object also. But what I asked the question to you, that what your object will be applicable for your garbage collector. So guys, these two objects will be applicable for your garbage collector. Why? Because this object now becomes a no reference object, and this object is what, a null reference object. So obviously both these objects has to be a part of that a garbage collector destroyer thing. This is something, it's fine, because this is being assigned to a object also, and I'm having a proper object. Understand? This is an interview question. Fine. Okay, I hope you are able to get things now. These are very conceptual things. uh, no one is going to tell you. Okay. Okay, now again one big interview question coming to you. I'll just create a what user class. Okay, I'll just take it as a user only. Now what this user class is saying, that there can be many users. Okay, fine. And let us just try to define some properties of this particular user class. And what are these? I'll take string name. A user can be having some name. Then I can take some age, that a user can having some age also. And what about some city, that user belongs to some city? Fine. So there can be millions of users. Perfect. How to create an object this user class? I'll just create it in this way. Sorry. User u1 is equals to new user. Okay. Fine. This is one of the object created. Huh? Fine, with the help of a new user. So u1 is actually referring to what? This new user object. It is referring to. Perfect. Now, can I assign some names, some properties to it? I'll just say we have one object with Manish name, and dot what? Age is equals to 31. And next what? Dot is city belongs from Pune. Fine. Now, can I create another object, guys? Huh? For the same thing? Okay. But obviously I need to take some different reference variable. This line remains same. So now u2 is actually pointing to some different object. Now we know from, and you can visualize from the memory also, that what is assigned to the heap. So u1 and u2 are being assigned as a part of stack memory, and new user assigned as a part of object creation. Two objects are created inside the heap memory. Okay. Now I'll just assign what some different names, and he is around 22 and belongs from Bangalore city. Okay. This is two second users I created. Oh, sorry. I'll just need to have this. Okay. Now, I'll just create one more user for you, and then we'll understand the interview question, what interview is actually asking. New user, I'll assign some name, Geeta, and what, age 25. And what about this? Will be from Delhi. Fine. Cool. Now, I have three references. Okay. Three object references, three objects with a perfectly what referring to my three objects. Okay. Similarly, I'll just create an what new file also for you, because this is important. One object, okay, another object, fine, and another object. Let us take just three objects only, and three uh, reference variable only. So for the first object, what are the properties assigned? Photocopy of all these properties will be assigned to where? Obviously, will be assigned to where? Okay. Similarly, photocopy of all the variables will be assigned to the second object also, guys. Okay. And similarly, photocopy of all the your reference or variables will be assigned to third object also. Now, u1 is referring to first. So I'll just write u1 here. And then it is referring to where? It is referring to this particular object. I know this thing. Now, second object or second reference variable, it is assigning or it is pointing to this object. I know this thing also. And third, u3, it is being referring to where? To my third object. This is also I know. Now till here I know everything. Okay. And for all the properties for u1, u2, u3, I have assigned some name. age, and city. Now the question is, first of all, see, I'm just trying to print all the data, all the current data of the users. Okay. Then important thing will begin. U1 dot name I'm just writing, and I am concatenating with some space and writing what U1 dot age also, and then concatenate again with some space string, and again U1 dot what was the name, city. Yeah, perfect. So this is I have printed for my U1 reference, and similarly for my U2, and similarly for my U3. I'm just trying to print it. Okay. Let me just first of all see if whatever I have assigned it is being printed or not. Okay. This is one. Now, can you print? Huh? You should print me what? Manish, Naman, and Geeta with all the cities and ages. Can we just print it? Okay. What is this? I don't understand any age. What you two? What is the Geeta dot null? Just a second. Okay. Sorry. Can you see this, guys? What I am getting? Huh? U2 because I have assigned with the U2 and U2. Should be U3. Otherwise, I'll be getting null only. Fine. Now, can I just try it again? Can you see this? Now, Manish 31 Pune, Naman 22 Bangalore, and Geeta 25 Delhi. That is perfect. I know this thing. U1, U2, U3 are being or referring to this object, and they are having some properties being assigned to the name, city, and age. Now, the question is, interview is saying this thing, that now what? I'll make you understand what is the meaning of this thing line 33 line. Just before that, printing some star pattern to make sure that what is the rest output I'm expecting now, guys. See what this 34th line is saying. This 34 line is saying that all the values of the U2 are being now assigned to U1. One of the way for understanding this, or second way to understand is that U1, now you break the connection from your current object and you start pointing to the U2. That is also we can say what I was saying. Either U2 you assign all the values or the current values that you have right now to U1, fine. Or I can say that U1 you break the connection, okay? U1 you break the connection from this current object you are referring to and start pointing to where? Huh? Start pointing to here. So tell me, guys, what values I'll be getting now here? I'll be getting what? Manish, Naman, and Geeta, or I'll be getting Naman, and Geeta, or what? Hmm? Tell me, Manish, Naman, Geeta, or Naman, or Geeta, or something else. For all these three things, see this now. Can you see this now? Naman, and Geeta, the second one. Why? Because U1 just broken down the connection from its initial state, current state, and start pointing to U2 because of this line. That U2, all the values are being assigned to U1 now, or U1 is actually breaking the connection from the current state of an object and is start pointing to the U2 class objects. Okay, so that's why it actually printed for this also Naman, and for this also obviously Naman. See, this is also I understand. For U2 it's Naman only, but why for U1 it's Naman? Because it broken down the connection from its this value and start pointing to this Naman value. Okay, okay. If you have understood this, then tell me what should be the reference, output of this thing. Very important question. I'll just delete this out. What this line is saying now? Now you understood that the same thing it will happen, that U2, now you break the connection from your current state and you start pointing to U3. That means U1 will break the connection, current connection from here, and it will start pointing to where? Start pointing to here. Now, tell me the output. What? Naman? Or what? Manish, Naman, Geeta? Or what? Naman, Geeta again? Or what? Huh? Naman and Geeta. See this. Naman, Geeta. Can you see this? I'll just put a See this, I'll put the star to make you more clear. See this, Naman Gita Gita. Why? Because U1 already started pointing to the Naman, that we know, and we got the response also. But earlier U2 were actually pointing to Naman, that we could see from this case, Naman. But now it just broken down the connection from its current state and start pointing to the third object. And third object name was Gita. So U2 will also print Gita. And U3 is already there for the Gita. And U1 just start pointed to Naman in the earlier way. From here. Huh? So that's how the references are being transferred. That's a reference transfer. Object reference transfer, we can actually consider it as a case. Very, very important question. Very important question. Though obviously, see, it's not very practical that we utilize it everywhere in frameworks and all these things, but that is a part of an automation thing, your interviews thing. That's why I'm discussing up this thing with you. Huh? It's very important, guys. Now tell me just one more thing. What if I'm just writing here? Hmm? Now this is very, very interesting. What is saying that U3, now you break the connection from U3, you break the connection of the current one and you start pointing to where? U1. Okay. So what I'll do? I'll just break the current connection and U3 will now start pointing to my U3 will start pointing to U1. Okay, this is the case. That means that U3 now should print what? Where is U1? U3 now should print what, Manish? And what about U2? U2 is already pointing to U3. Okay, it should print Gita. Fine. And what about U1? Where it is pointing to? It is pointing to Naman. Second. Should we get like this? Naman, Manish, Gita. It should be the perfect answer. See this. It is not. Just a second. Again, I'll just put it. See what we were expecting, guys. Naman, Manish, Gita. But what we got? Naman, Gita, Naman. Huh? How? See this. So U1 was pointing to U2. I know. For that reason, I got the Naman. Perfect. U2 was pointing to U3. Okay. For that reason, I should get Gita. Okay. Perfect. Third thing. U3 starts pointing to U1. What was the value of U1? Huh? Manish. It should print Manish, na? Why it printed Naman here again? Till second part, we know Naman and Gita, it's perfectly printed fine. But U3 breaking down the connection from its current state and U3 starts pointing to U1. But tell me one thing, where U1 is pointing to? Huh? What is the current state of U1? U1 is pointing to U2. And that's how your circle completes. So U3 is actually going to connect to U1 only. But internally, U1 is also connected to what? U2. That's why U3 will be printing the name of second U2, means or second object, that is what? Your Naman. And that's how it gave you Naman Gita Naman, and not the Naman Gita Manish. So that means what? Now this second object will be having two references. What? U1, this U1, and U3 indirectly. So this tells that if an object can have multiple references also in Java. And tell me now, which object will be applicable for your garbage collector, guys? Huh? This one? U1 only? Because obviously U1 is pointing to here and U2 is pointing to here. But U3 were actually used to point to U1. But since U1 is pointing to U2, so that's why U1 and U3 now pointing to U2 only. And there is no reference that is actually pointing to U1. That's why this will be a case where garbage collector will be destroying this U1 object. Because this object 1 is not being referenced by any of the reference variable. And hence this is applicable for that thing. Fine, guys. Now, guys, your homework is try to create 4 objects, have a user class or some of the class, whatever you want to take it. Take 4 objects, Just practice it at your end. How about if I'm saying u1 is equals to u2, u2 u3, u3 u1? Practice it at your end. So take four objects u1, u2, u3, u4. Okay. So don't try to print it on the Eclipse. Just trying to have some paint diagram and all these things. Have a pen or a paper. Just try to break the connection from the current loop, a current object, assign it to something else, and then try to print the values. Okay. That should be your homework. Fine. And guys, yes, that is actually all from today's end, because there are important topics that I have to cover up. So I don't want to lose it in between. So that will be covering in the next session. Fine. Any question, guys, till here? Are you able to understand the things? Any questions? Okay, so what I'll do, guys, first of all, I'll put the array list. I think I have an assignment to give you that I have not given. So I'll give you that assignment. Try to complete all your assignments, guys, till this Sunday. Fine. Okay, then we'll meet soon. Okay. Okay, guys, I'll stop the recording for today. Thanks a lot, guys, for attending the session. Thank you.
Thank you.